All right, welcome back, everybody. Happy Saturday, and it's going to be a good one. So we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to take a look at to see where Bitcoin might possibly go based on the latest numbers that we do have for it, based on 2024 figures as far as where it went up, as far as the high price, where it closed, where was the low, and I'll also give you guys a little bit of background as far as my predictions, and I've been actually pretty good at it. So we'll go back to 2022, the bear market, which I thought was going to be possibly a bear market. I also thought there might be a bull run. So we did two scenarios on it. We'll take a look at the actual bear case because that came pretty close. And then in 2023, beginning of it, I also did a bull case for Bitcoin where it could be by the end of the year. And again, I got pretty close. So we're going to go kind of based on those numbers there. And as always, you guys know, this is not financial advice. For entertainment only, please do your own research. Excuse me, I'm investing in following coins and companies for full disclosure. And if you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously. And then always corrections will be posted to Discord, which is through Patreon memberships, and then YouTube, community posts, Twitter as well. So if we make a mistake, we'll get it updated there. Okay, but let me give you guys a little background here. So we'll take a look at what, obviously, Bitcoin possibly going to first, and we'll take a look at the miners as far as how they did for this past week against Bitcoin here. But this was recorded, I believe, like in January or February of 2022. So right at the beginning of the year, roughly, somewhere around there. And I did two scenarios, a bull case and a bear case for that year. And actually the bear case was the one that came true. Kind of figured that I would, but you never know with Bitcoin. But here's what I had Bitcoin at the end of the year of 2022, around $13,196 at the end of that year. And that was based on some calculations based on math, historical data, things like that. That's kind of how I figured that out. And then if we look at Bitcoin here, it actually came pretty close to it. So if you look at the chart, we got to a low in, what was it, November. So I was off by a month, but we got to a low of 15,460. Bitcoin in December actually closed out the month at 16,530. So I was off by $2,500, $3,000 or so on the low target on it. Now, if we look at the bull case for 2023, I had Bitcoin getting to 42,000 by the end of the year. Also, this video was recorded and this data was presented also like in January or February of 2023. You guys can see it. It's on the line. It's in my video feed that I have of everything else. So you can always double check there to make sure that I'm not, lying to you guys. But it was done at that point, and the numbers that we had was, like I said, 42,000. And if we look at the end of this, or the past year, 2023, we got to, in December, we actually closed right at 42,288. So I was pretty close there, but we did overshoot it to a high of 45,000, right? So still, again, pretty close to those figures as well, within a couple thousand. And really happy with it. So I'm either really damn lucky on my numbers, or the math just seems to work out pretty well in these scenarios. But we'll see, obviously, how close we get to a possible bull run this time around this cycle after the halving event. And we got kind of two figures where we're going to kind of look at possibly where Bitcoin's going to go to. So let's get into those figures there, and then we'll obviously get into other things, and we'll talk about it as well. But here's the BTC prediction here for this cycle. And I'm using the data from all of the previous years, the halving cycles and all that stuff to kind of come up with a figure of where we possibly could get to. And then this time around, we're also having obviously the spot Bitcoin ETF. That is kind of throwing a wrench into things a little bit, so it might spike a little higher. So if I just want to point some things out to you guys here, if we look at the data here, and if we look at the percentages from the the open and close, where the year opened up at basically and where it closed, you can see that after the halving here, we had like 5,300% increase in Bitcoin in 2013. Then in 2017, we had a 1,334% increase. And then in 2021, it was a lot lower of an increase. We had only 59% increase. So I think 2021 might be an anomaly year, right? We had a double top. We had 64,000. We hit 69,000 or showing 67 here for the high. But it was right around 69,000 for 2021. And I'm debating whether or not that was just like an anomaly in the cycles that we had. If you look at it that way, right? Just based on the percentage gains from the prior cycles as well. Okay, then if you look at like the halvings, all right? The year of the halving in 2012, we were up 218%. The halving in 2016, we were up 124%. And then the halving that we had just had in 2020, we were up 303% from the open to the close of that year. So also kind of more or less in line where things should be, right? We got 218, 124, 303. So that was definitely looks like people were maybe front running a little bit in 2020 with the cycle. Potentially, and that's why we had a little bit lower also 2021 here after the halving cycle. And then if you look at us where we are right now, we are at 155%. So we're kind of in that range here between the 303, the 124, and the 218, right? So that kind of makes sense there. Now we're getting into the year 2024 here. We started out roughly at 42. I'm guessing we might end up around 110,000. And that's just using the average of the last 2 cycles and then reducing that by about 25% or so. Right, so I'm reducing it because I believe that the percentage gains are going to be less each cycle going forward, but the gains on the monetary side of things, cash side, is going to be greater because we're dealing with much larger numbers. So it's kind of where I have that at potentially at the end of this year, going in through the halving cycle, which would only be like a 2x from where we are right now, right? So that'd be pretty close. That'd be pretty right on there, I would think. And then when we get into the next year after the halving cycle, which is usually when we have good gains here going forward, I'm guessing somewhere like 174% increase because we had this huge increase here, 1,334, and then we had this kind of a dud increase here of 59% last cycle. So I'm basing that on that, and I'm also reducing it by 75% overall. So if you look at maybe I can. There you go. So if you look down here, I'm basically multiplying it times 0.25, so I'm reducing the amount that we would normally have if we just use the average on it. Okay, so I'm guessing 174% potentially increase, which would get us to approximately 302,000 on Bitcoin at that point. Sometime during the year. We don't know when it's going to happen, but that could be our cycle top for it. I think that would be like the uppermost band of the cycle top. Now, my original numbers from last year when I did this in 2023, I was looking more at Bitcoin being around 180,000, right? And that would still kind of play into play if we use that 59%, same as the prior halving, right? That would get us to about 180,000. So I think that might be like the bottom of the cycle as far as where price could be on Bitcoin right now. So I'm guessing somewhere between like 175 to like 302 is kind of what I'm looking at. And that is based on all this math that we've done here to kind of figure things out. And you can see here that also the highs each year. So we got a couple different charts here. The first chart is highs 1 year prior to halving. Right, 2015 we were at $463. 2019 we were at $12,913. 2023 we were at 45,000. So each time we have a halving cycle, the year prior we're higher than the prior halving cycles, which is good, right? That's what we want to see. This time around, highs in the halving year, so like kind of how we are right now. We saw the same thing in 2016. We were at 975. In 2020, in 2020 we were $28,972, and then 2024. Right now, we hit, 53,000 was our highest so far right now, right? That's going to possibly change where we could be much higher. But if you look at the multiples from the prior halving cycles, that was a 29.7x increase from 2016 to 2020. And then from 2020 to so far, we're only at 1.8x increase. I would expect it to be possibly like maybe a 3x or something like that. So that would get us maybe a 3 or 4x. That would get us closer to the 100,000, which I'm thinking that we might be at this year. Okay. Then if we look at the highs 1 year after the halving cycle, you can see that from 2017, we had a 15x from the 2013? Yeah, 15x from there. Then from 2017 to 2020, we had a 3.5x. We got to 67,000 roughly. And then if we go from the next potential high, which I'm thinking maybe 175,000 on the lower end, we're looking at 2.6x. And that's obviously estimated for this year, which would get us to that 175,000. I think the 175 is more doable than the 300,000, right? But that is also taking into account that we do now have the spot Bitcoin ETF, which could propel Bitcoin up higher for a longer period of time as well. And we've obviously seen great gains last cycle or last year, right? We saw better gains. There was another thing I wanted to point out to you guys here. There was something that was interesting that I was seeing increases in. I'm trying to think if I can find that again. Where is it at? Let me see here. I'm not seeing it. I thought I saw someplace where things were increasing cycle over cycle, but I might have missed it here. But nonetheless, if we look at the open to the highs, right, here's the gains that we have basically for 2017, 2021, and then obviously 2024. So far, we're up 59%, 25% from where we were in the halving right now, 25, and this would be 59% from 2025 estimated. Also, the gains here, if we got to 302,000 from the prior low of 16,530 here, in 2023 to get to 302,000. That'd be a 1,727% increase. So pretty high, right? That's kind of what we had in between 2019 and 2021. We had that. And then between 2015 and 2017, we had 5,968. So I don't think we're going to get that high. Maybe, right? It's maybe doable. But this would be 962% increase if we go from the 16,000 to the 175,000 on it. I think that's more doable. So I'm thinking, like I said, somewhere between here, 175,000 and 302,000 might be our top somewhere in that time frame over the next basically 2 years roughly, right? 12 to 18 months or so. But that's kind of the way I'm looking at it right now. And obviously we'll discuss it in the chat, how you guys feel about it. And then comments and Q&As as well. So that's kind of where I'm looking at, right? We'll see how close we are. So far, I did pretty good on the bear market and the bull run in 2023. As far as getting price pretty close to where it actually ended up, we'll see how close I am in the next 2 years on this. But it'll be interesting to see. Okay. We'll kind of fine tune this a little bit as we get more data throughout this year and things like that. And we'll kind of revisit this throughout the year as well to see if it's still projecting this way. Okay. But that is it for it. That's kind of where I'm looking at. And then if that's the case, if we look at the miners as far as what those could do, if we go to, let's just say 175,000, right? From where we are right now, that's basically a 3x in the Bitcoin price roughly, right? We're at 53,000 something or 51,000 right now. If we go to 175, that's a 3x. At that point, you could say that the miners could do like a 9x at worst case scenario to possibly going up to like 15x, right? And then if we look at possibly going to 302,000, well, then now we're at like 6x here. Multiply that by the 3. So miners could be like 15x to 20x potentially, if not higher. Okay. That's kind of where you're looking at, especially the ones that are doing really well. Those might, blow those numbers out the water anyways. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun 12 to 18 months to see where things go. And if things get this high, this heated, you got FOMO in there, you got everything else in there, you can throw all fundamentals out the window and things are just going to skyrocket. So, some of these stocks could be above $100 per share. Okay. But that's it for that. And then let's get into really quick here the miners, how they performed this past week against Bitcoin. And it wasn't a good week for the miners or Bitcoin in general. Bitcoin was down just a little bit here. And I should have had this prepared, but I don't. There we go. But here's what we're looking at. This is always from the 52-week high. So those are the light, I don't know what these are, teal bars, light blue bars. So that's from the 52-week lows. So wherever those lows were for each miner, how far have they gone up from those 52-week lows? And then we're looking at the 52-week highs. How far away are they from that position? So we can see here at Cleanspark, obviously leading the pack here in the last 52 weeks. They're up 707% from their 52-week lows. Marathon up 367. Bitfarms 344. TeraWolf 275. Mawson 272%. Really for no reason there. There's really no catalyst that should be driving that stock up higher other than manipulation and people thinking that they're going to get bought out after the halving. That's my only thought on that one. Same thing with Sphere 3D. 271% is too much of an increase for them. When you have miners like potentially like Riot, Iris, and BitDigital that are growing and everything else with a healthy balance sheet, those should be higher, in my opinion at least. Okay, and then you have Bitcoin up 158% from its 52-week low, and then these all have performed worse than Bitcoin. So you got DMG, Cypher, BitDeer, Argo, Digihost, Hive, Hut 8, and Core. Core obviously is probably on there higher, but we're using new data, which is for the CORZ stocks ticker symbol instead of the CORZ that we had before. So that data is off a little bit, but they're probably up higher as well. Probably even ahead of Cleanspark right now if you look at where they were 52 weeks ago or 52 weeks time frame, where their bottom was and where they've come up to right now. Okay, so that's the only anomaly here on this one. And then looking at how far away they are from their 52-week highs, you can see Bitcoin's pretty close. It's only 4.2% away from their 52-week highs. The next one will be Cleanspark, only 14%, followed by Bitfarms at 18%, and then you got Marathon, 23% away, followed by DMG and Riot, and then you got everybody else around 30%, 40%, some 50%, and some 60% away still from that where they are. Okay, now looking as far as how the miners have done over the past week here, we can see that Bitcoin is only down 3%. Everybody else has done worse. So some miners like Cypher is down 20%. So they did basically like a 6x worse than Bitcoin here. TeraWolf, same thing. Argo, all these guys, Bitfarms even 16% down. You got a couple there. Digihost down 15. You got a couple 13% down here. And one that's done the least worst is Sphere, followed by BitDeer and Cleanspark, Iris, and Riot as well. Okay, so that's on the 1 week time frame. If you look at the 4 weeks, things change a little bit. Cleanspark at that point is the leader here at 98% up in the 4 weeks. Bitcoin at that point is only up 18%. So a lot of miners have done better here since Bitcoin, but a lot have also done worse. Next performer, best one would be 63% for Iris, followed by who else is up here? Bitfarms up 35%. Then you got 32% for Marathon and Riot. And you got a couple here that have done pretty bad. Mawson kind of pulling back here a little bit, 30% down. BitDeer down 15% and Digihost down 6%. And then on the 8 weeks, you can see that a lot of miners are now doing worse than Bitcoin here. Only a couple doing better. You got Cleanspark up 61%, Bitfarms up 11%, TeraWolf up 5%. Everybody else has done worse. You could also say that Bitfarms and TeraWolf have done worse as Bitcoin has gone up 15%. So the only one that's done better is Cleanspark. And then on the 12 weeks, things obviously change up a little bit here as well. We now see that we have a couple of miners that are below Bitcoin. Bitcoin's up 15% from 12 weeks ago. You got Riot down 6%, BitDigital down 25%, Hive down 9%, Hut 8 down 18%. And then the ones that have done better are Sphere up 38%, Cleanspark 59%. You got Mawson up 33%, Marathon up 43%, DMG up 43%, and then you got Bitfarms up 17%. So that's kind of the ones that are doing really good here on that side of things. So it's interesting to take a look at it. And then when we look at our table here, we can see that we had obviously a pretty red week here this past week. We had 2 good green weeks here in the prior to that. Then we had a red week for the most part, a green week, and then we had some red weeks obviously here beginning of the year, which was not followed, but prequeled by a bunch of green weeks here that we had, obviously in November, December as well. Those were great weeks. We had huge gains in there as well, as along with in October, November here. So it's been up and down, and we'll see where things get to going forward. We're only, 50 some days away from the having event right now. So we'll keep an eye on it, see what happens. We'll see what the miners do. And I will be looking to deploy some capital into these miners if they continue going next week. I'm hoping to put in a little bit more into it as well. So that is it in a nutshell of everything. So let's get into the Q&A here with you guys. So as always, the Q&A, if you guys could put your questions in capital letters or preface it with a question in capital letters, that way I can find all this stuff and we'll get through as many as we can. Okay, so let's see if we got any questions here. Okay, I'll let you guys get some questions in here if you guys have any. Let's see. Do you guys have any questions? I don't see any questions coming in yet. Let me take a sip of water while we wait for some questions. And if you guys, excuse me, if you guys don't have any questions, we'll make it easy. Hold on, I see something possibly coming up here. Let's see it. All right, we got one. So hypothetically, if Bitcoin were to only reach its all-time high, what's the model say Bitfarm reaches? Well, if you're saying all-time high, 69,000, is that what you're kind of questioning at that point? So we're only, basically 17,000 away from that? I mean, Bitfarms wouldn't go that much high, but if we're looking at like 185,000 or 175,000, you're looking at 3x for that. You're looking possibly 9x, 10x for Bitfarms potentially on that side of things. Okay, Anthony asks, hi Sebastian, please give me your opinion on Cypher. I think Cypher's doing pretty good now, much better than they were before when they were majorly owned by Bitfury. Bitfury was supposed to give out its shares of Cypher, bring it down to like 25% ownership. And the rest, excuse me, was supposed to be given out to their shareholders. So that would make it 100 some plus people having interest in the company shares, right? Instead of one entity. So the concern there was that Bitfarms could sell 10 million shares or something like that, bringing the price down or putting sell pressure on it. That wasn't good, or wasn't viewed well by investors at that point. They rectified that, they fixed that. I think it's okay. They're doing pretty good. They do have growth, but I think the growth isn't going to be until 2025 sometime. I would have to look at my numbers for it, but that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. Overall, I think they're doing pretty good. Let's see here. Okay. Is TeraWolf profitable after 24 halving based on recent repayment announcement? No, they would still be in the red because of their interest payments that they still have on the 100 million left over at that point. So they need to restructure it. They need to get that restructured over so it's like maybe another 3-5 years or if anything, dilute, unfortunately, and pay that debt off so that way they have a clean balance sheet. But that's kind of what I'm seeing right now, at least. Let's see. What would be the main reason why miners have such a leverage effect over Bitcoin? Well, the reason is they can mine it at a much lower cost than what Bitcoin is going for right now. We're seeing the miners right now, just their electrical costs, maybe like some employees that run the data centers we're getting a price per Bitcoin at that point of like 16 to 20,000 per Bitcoin. Right, Bitcoin's at 50 some thousand. That's 30,000 profit potentially. Now they got to obviously keep their overhead pretty light as well. We saw Riot have huge numbers as far as general administrative and things like that are making them unprofitable. So they need to really dial that down. Other miners as well. We want to see that number, the SG&A number, under 20% of the overall revenue for the companies. If not lower than that, like 15, 10%, that'd be perfect. I don't know if we can get there, but that's kind of what we're seeing. That's kind of why Bitcoin's a leverage play on it. They can mine it for a much lower cost as long as they can keep their overhead down. Let's see here. Kevin asks, does Mara and other miners have security forces to protect miners? I think they do have some security measures in place. I don't know if they have a 24-hour security guard on premises, but I think they have key cards and things like that. They need access to the facilities, cameras as well. But I would imagine that at least they have that, right? You don't want to leave those unattended, obviously. And possibly, I think they have somebody working there pretty much 24/7 anyways. Question here, between Riot and Marathon, which one do you like more? Well, that's a tough one. Right, we've seen Marathon underperform here in the last month, in January and in February so far. It looks like they're kind of getting things back in order with their operations, but they've curtailed quite a bit here. Riot, with them also, they curtailed quite a bit. The only thing that's good is obviously they're both growing. Marathon's buying its own infrastructure as well. They're buying buildings, so that's going to help them be more possibly efficient, which would be a good sign there. And then you got Riot, on the other hand, also building out a Corsicana facility. That's a 1 gigawatt facility. That's going to give them huge growth going forward. And if they can get all the power that they need at that facility, that should offset some of the crappy performance that they've had at Rockdale, right? So I think they're both geared to grow really well. The only concern right now with Riot is just the amount of bleeding that they have through hosting and the overall general administrative expenses that they have. It's tripled over the last year. It's insane. So not sure what's going on there. I need to do maybe a little bit more deep dive on that one. But they're both in this kind of same boat, in my opinion, where they're not very efficient. Their uptime is horrendous. So based on that, and then going forward, I think they both should do really well if they can get their things settled in. But that's kind of my take on it. Let's see here. Okay, so Mike is saying yes at 69,000. Yes, I mean Bitcoin goes up only 17,000. You're looking at maybe so that would be not even, wow. I mean, at that point, Bitfarms could go up maybe at 50 cents, $1. Who knows? Not much. Let's see. Do you think Cleanspark will pull back prior to the halving? I don't think it's only going to be Cleanspark, but it might be the rest of the miners as well. I mean, we saw a pullback this week alone in the miners where they were down 15, 20% already. Some of the miners, at least. The other ones, it's kind of tough. We'll have to see how it goes. It depends where Bitcoin goes. If Bitcoin starts to rally a little bit here going into maybe next week, and then with the sell pressure being relieved from Genesis, I think that will drive more of the ETF demand back up. And at that point, I think Bitcoin starts going back up. And if that happens, I think the miners will follow. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. So it depends on Bitcoin, where Bitcoin goes. Okay. When CORZ can get more volumes. So trading volumes, I think it's mainly because they just got out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They need to basically provide investors with at least, I'm guessing, 1 or at most 2 quarters of financials, right? To see how the company's doing. At that point, we might be okay. And then thank you, Kevin, for the super chat. Let's see here. I'll get to it. I'm trying to get through all the email or the questions here. Question, why do you feel like undervalued miners like Bitfarms are running as well as Cleanspark before the dips were happening? Why do you feel like undervalued miners like Bitfarms aren't running as well as Cleanspark? Mainly because it's the growth, right? And then Cleanspark also provided us with the financial results where they were positive on the EPS. So that was a catalyst. They had a huge pump in their stock price within a matter of days. So I think that's part of it, the growth side of things as well. And that could be possibly why. So I think once Bitfarms starts reporting that they're getting closer to like 10 exahash, right? And then getting to 12 exahash, I think that's going to start pumping the stock up also at that point. Let's see. What is a good point for entry into Bitfarms? That's up to you, my friend. You have to decide when you want to get into it. I've dollar cost averaged into these miners because I just don't know where the bottom is. So you can dollar cost average in, you can go all in. That's up to you to decide. Whatever you feel is like the good time to do it. But I would just possibly dollar cost average in, not financial advice. Okay. Okay, so question BTC hits 180,000. How much for Mara, Riot, Cleanspark, IREN? Well, you're looking at basically like a 3x on Bitcoin. So multiply that times 3x again. So you're looking at about 9x or so, I would imagine, for the other miners. So whereas Cleanspark's at 15 right now, you could possibly say 9x from that. So you're looking at maybe above $100. Same thing for Marathon and Riot. Iris would be closer to $100 at that point, but it just all depends on how fast we get there and how much of a pullbacks we have in between. So not financial advice, just kind of what we would possibly see. Right, because if Bitcoin goes 2x, you can kind of say that the miners will do at least a 3x, if not better. Okay. Let's see here. Do miners have insurance for if someone sabotages their mining with a fire or a bomb? I'm sure they have insurance for that. They got to have property insurance and asset insurance as well on all those things. So they're insured. Do you still like XF for mining? Yeah, I still like them. Now that the whole Bitfury thing has been taken care of with the shares, I think they're in a much better position. And I think they're maybe looked upon more favorably by investors as well. Okay. Let's see here. How many miners left to report earnings before you post your new value targets? Well, we still have quite a bit. I think we've only had 5 that reported. I'm tracking 16 or 17. So we still have quite a bit that have to report. Probably won't get into that until, I'm guessing, March sometime when everybody's done reporting. The thing with the fiscal year ends, it always takes longer for them to report because they have to be audited. So that always takes longer. Let's see. Next question. Do you have public miner hash by location? Geo distribution is interesting. I don't have it by hash, but I have all the hash that they have installed. And then you can probably look at their slides, presentations, things like that. You can figure out what they have where based on that. Let's see here. Thanks for your work. When exactly will the halving date be? Also, where do you see miners 10 or 25x? So the halving date, we're like 50 some odd days away from right now from it. So they're saying, was it April 20th to like April 22nd to like April 17th, depending on how fast the blocks are mined. We'll get somewhere in there, but we're getting close to it. And then as far as the miners, could they do 20? What was the question? Where do you see miners 10x or 25x? I think the miners can still do at minimum at least a 10x, right? If Bitcoin goes up to 180,000, I think that's still feasible there. Maybe some might not do it, some might do it, some might do it more. It's hard to tell where everybody's going to go. It all depends on how they perform, how well they build out, right? If somebody stumbles or they have issues or whatever reason, that could obviously hurt them there. Let's see. Okay. Do your models say Bitfarm possibly beats estimates for their upcoming earnings? Do you see a chance for break even or profit? That's going to be interesting with Bitfarms. Bitfarms is Canadian based, I believe, right? And then I don't know if the Canadian miners are able to take advantage of the new FASB rules. We didn't see it with Hive. At least I didn't see with Hive that they used it, that new FASB rule for reevaluating Bitcoin. So I don't know if they're able to do it, if it's just a US thing or if it also would apply to them. We'll have to find out. We'll have to run some numbers on it. We can possibly see where they could be. But their numbers should be much better than where they were in Q3. Let's see here. Why do you think this week was so bad for the miners? Bitcoin price was going down, so that's basically why. They usually follow Bitcoin. Sometimes they don't follow like step, but sometimes they do break away from it and they'll front run Bitcoin, or sometimes they'll lag Bitcoin as well. This week they were just kind of in step with Bitcoin. Bitcoin was going down, miners were going down. Plus some of the miners had really good gains here, so people taking profits and things like that. Let's see here. Do you see a deleveraging event before the year close? Well, you always have people that are going to be selling possibly for tax reasons or for whatever reason at the end of the year. So it might happen. I don't know how much is going to happen. But you know, if you look at historical charts on Bitcoin, I think one of the worst months, or not the best months, is usually like December, November, sometime from around there, September even, I think. It all depends. Let's see here. What is the most overvalued miner and undervalued miner right now? Based on my numbers, Riot is the most overvalued right now because we've seen quite a bit of dilution in them. And that obviously offset the numbers as far as where I think they should get to. And then as far as what are the most undervalued right now, I would say probably CORZ, but CORZ just got a bankruptcy. There's a reason for it, right? They're performing well otherwise. We just need to see some numbers from them for quarterly results, at least one or two, like I said before. And then the other ones I would say would probably be like Iris Energy, Bitfarms as well. Those guys should be at least 2x from where they are right now, in my opinion. And then we got possibly Wolf, depending on how they do with their debt restructuring, all that stuff. And then Cypher. Okay, those are the ones I would kind of keep an eye on. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Question, I am out of Cleanspark but ready to buy. How low can they go for a nice buy moment? Don't know. I mean, Bitcoin goes up, they might go up as well. So you just never know where they're going to go. Nobody knows. If anybody tells you that they know where it's going to go, they're full of BS because nobody knows. Nobody knows what Bitcoin's going to do, and they usually follow Bitcoin. So unfortunately, don't have a crystal ball on that one. Do you think we'll break new Bitcoin all-time high by halving? No, I don't think we'll hit that before the halving. After the halving, yes, but maybe even this year. Like I said, we might get to like 100,000 this year by the end of the year, potentially, but not before the halving. Let's see here. Let's see, question, miners will peak before BTC peaks or after based on past history. So based on past history, we saw miners peak a little bit in advance of the BTC. We'll see if it happens this time around as well. But last time we saw they peaked a couple of days, like a week or something like that before Bitcoin did. At least majority of them did, not all of them. Marathon was the only exception where it kind of continued to follow Bitcoin in last cycle, where we got to 64,000. All the other miners started going down in price after that and kind of following Bitcoin a little bit, but they were still down from where they were in the all-time highs. And then Marathon was the only one that actually went back up to a new all-time high, I believe, with the 69,000 in Bitcoin price at that point. So we'll keep an eye on it. Let's see here. I have heard that new ETF customers are not allowed to sell out of the ETF for 90 days. If true, will we not see big selling going forward? Well, that's interesting. I don't know if there's any clauses in that when you buy the ETFs. I thought you buy the ETFs, you can sell out of it. It's like trading stocks. So that's interesting. We'll have to do some more research on that one because I'm not sure on that one. Let's see here. Won't having make miners go down a decent amount at first due to the fact that they have to mine twice as much? Yeah, I mean, you're basically cutting their revenues in half at that point. So as miners that are growing into the halving, like Marathon, Cleanspark, Riot, Iris Energy, Bitfarms, and others as well that are growing into it are kind of going to offset those losses. But then you also have to take into consideration that the Bitcoin network hash rate we're thinking is going to decrease because the older, less efficient miners will possibly unplug. And that is only if Bitcoin stays in the range where it's at right now, right? And Bitcoin starts going back up, past 60,000 or something like that. And then the miners might not be at that point where they have to unplug. So there's going to be some challenges there. What do you think of Mara on Wednesday Q4 results? Well, we saw obviously Riot provide that they use the new FASB rule. If that's the case, I think Marathon's going to use it. They have a huge hodl position. I think that's going to be a good. They should get a positive EPS at least for Q4. I don't know about the full year numbers, but it'll be pretty close, I think, even for the full year. Question: do you think we'll break new Bitcoin all-time high? No, I just talked about that one. I don't think that's going to happen. I think afterwards. Cleanspark, if BTC is 150, well, then you're going up basically 3x from there. Do like 6 to 9x on Cleanspark at that point. That's kind of where I would guess that they would be. Good entry point for Bitfarms. That's up to you. I can't tell you when to buy into them. Depends on what you think. Is Bitcoin going to go down into the halving? Is Bitcoin going to go up into the halving? It's kind of your decision to make as far as when to get in. I've been dollar cost averaging since 2022, and that's the way I've been doing it. So if I get a dip, I buy into it if I can, and I don't trade them. Let's see. Another question. I was about to add some Bitfarms to my bag under $3 and some IREN under 6. Would you wait for a bigger correction? That's just the thing. We don't know if we're going to get a correction. It all depends where Bitcoin goes. So if you're going to looking to buy, dollar cost average in, like I say, because we just don't know. Let's see here. Argo going bankrupt, potentially. They're like one of the worst miners that I see here after the halving event. If Bitcoin stays at 50,000 and the network hash rate is at like 605 exahash, they're pretty much not profitable at that point. They don't even have enough cash to pay their overhead. So at that point, I think either Galaxy Digital is going to buy out their miners and they're going under, or they get a lifeline from somebody that's going to possibly bail them out. Tough to say. Kevin, like I said, thank you for the super chat. I'm just trying to catch up. You guys have a lot of questions here, man. Let's see here. Between Cleanspark and Bitfarms, which one do you think will tank first? What do you mean by tank? Like go out of business? I don't think either of those will go out of business. On that one. Let's see what else here. My top 3 favorite miners are Cleanspark, Bitfarms, and RS Energy. And you could also add in there for growth reasons. You could add Marathon and Riot and like Cypher in there as well. And those are the ones that are at least growing. But they got some issues, at least Marathon and Riot do with production uptimes and things like that. So I'm looking mostly when I look at the miners as uptime, production, right, efficiencies, things like that. How are they growing? Are they growing continually and things like that? And those top 3 would be mine, Cleanspark, Bitfarms, and Argo Energy. Talked about that. What do I think about Mara? I think Mara's a beast, obviously. They have a huge potential, but they just continue to have issues where their operation is not up to par, right? If you got 24 exahash, you should be running that 24/7 if you can. Obviously, if sometimes you have to curtail because your contracts with the energy providers, okay, fine. But they shouldn't be down this much in production. And then issues with the facilities, they should have like backup of things, at least one of everything. If something goes down, you can replace it and be back up and running within, a couple hours, not a couple weeks. So that's just my take on it. But that goes for all the miners. I think they should have some backups. So let's see here. Which one would I pick as far as Wolf or Bitfarms after having? I still like Bitfarms because they don't have any debt. That's the main thing. Operational side of things as well. They operate really well, efficient, good uptimes as well. So I would have to pick Bitfarms at that point, and that's why I have them right now. Argo future, possibly going out of business. We'll have to see. Aiden Kylik from Hive said that they will have 10 million revenue from HPC business, and this will go up to 100 million in 1 year. Yeah, we'll have to see. What impact will this make on stock price if 100 million revenue is executed? Let's see if they can get to the 100 million first. They're barely making $1 million now per quarter. So that's 100x from where they are right now. Let me see that first before I comment on that. Let's see here. Question. So I kind of covered this, went a little bit. What expectations for tomorrow on the 28th, and price action looks like Riot had not much impact on the stock price. Yeah, I mean, Riot also didn't provide a conference call with the investors, which I don't know why they didn't do it. Okay, yeah, they had some bad stuff in there, but at least address it, deal with it, how you're going to fix it, and not, hide away from investors. Marathon, with them being able to take take advantage of the FASB rules, they should have a really good quarter for December, Q4. I don't know if the full year is going to be profitable for them based on Q4 numbers, but I believe the Q4 numbers should be really good nonetheless. Okay. I talked about my 3 favorites already. Question here as well. Are you expecting a pullback to 48 or lower before having? It's possible, right? We just don't know what's going to happen with Bitcoin. It just all depends. We do have the sell pressure right now from Genesis, dispersing or distributing out their coins to people. So we got sell pressure from that. And then if spot Bitcoin ETFs continue to buy as much as they've been buying, we could see where Bitcoin is going up. So tough to say. Let's see what else here. Cost-effective ones. Trying to find another good question here that we haven't already covered. Here we go. So which miner can Cleanspark buy out? I don't think they want to buy out any miner, because if you buy out a miner, you also have the debt that you got to deal with at that point. There are some miners that might have interesting facilities that they may want to buy, but I don't think they want to buy out a full miner, at least not that I'm seeing, at least right now. Mawson would be a potential one that they would want to buy some facilities from them. They already bought facilities from Mawson in the past. So that's kind of the way I would look at it that way. Let's see here. I'm catching up here to you guys a little bit here. Okay. Covered that question here. Okay. Do you short miners in the bear market? I have not in the past. Now, that doesn't mean that I may not start doing it. Because if I'm going to make money on the upside, I might as well make money on the downside too if it's going to happen. But is it going to happen this time around? I don't know, right? We'll have to see how the spot Bitcoin ETFs affects everything this cycle around. Will we have a continuation where we're slowly grinding up longer term wise, and we have smaller pullbacks like we've seen this past year with Bitcoin only dropping like 20% on a couple pullbacks. So we'll have to keep an eye on things, right? But we'll have to see. I don't like to short normally because I'm a positive person, so I like to invest in things that I think are going to be going up. I don't want to beat people down when they're down. But we'll see. If there's a way to possibly make money on it, well, maybe we'll do it, but we'll see. I don't know. I got to think about it. I don't know if I want to do it. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on the left translated Bitcoin cycle, 1 year bull and 3 years bear? Do you think we could see it this time? Not really. Well, it depends on where Bitcoin goes. I mean, Bitcoin goes up to 300,000 or 500,000, and then we're dropping down for a couple of years because of it. Well, maybe. I mean, there's a possibility to that, but I think as long as we get the adoption happening, which we're seeing with Bitcoin, we're also seeing the spot Bitcoin ETFs having an impact. We got the halving event coming up here as well, which is going to cut supply, so it's going to be demand shock there. And then you also have Gensler possibly lowering interest rates later on this year. I think things are going to be moving in the positive side of things, and if we see a reverse where we have 1 bull and 3 years of bear, well, that's going to be tough. But I don't think that's going to happen. Doesn't seem like it. We haven't had it yet over the last couple cycles, or since the beginning of Bitcoin, basically. So I wouldn't foresee that happening. Let's see here. Question: can we get a ratio for each miner compared to Bitcoin price? You mean like ratio as far as how far they can go down or up? I'm guessing. We'll do that. We'll take a look at that when they all report their quarterly results for Q4 and fiscal year numbers. And then we'll kind of take a look at where Bitcoin possibly could go at, and then the miners where they could go as well, based on what their cost is going to be to break even, come halving, and all that stuff. We'll take a look at that probably next month. Will there be any bear market future after ETF? Don't know. Right, that's one of the things that we have to look at. If you look at historical with the ETFs, and if you look at gold, right, it had like a 4, 5, 6 year rally in price where it didn't get a bear market at that point. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's see here. When will Cleanspark complete last 2 exahash at Centersville? I think within like the next couple of weeks, they said they're going to get that. They're just waiting on a piece of equipment to get repaired or replaced. At that point, I think they're going to be, they should be at like 16 exahash at that point. And then we're obviously waiting for them to get to 20 exahash by the end of this first half of the year. And let's see here. All right, I think that's it. We've kind of covered all the questions here. So good questions, a lot of questions, but we got through them all. I don't see anything else popping up here right now as far as new questions. So again, thank you so much for coming in to watch this video. I'll make sure that all of the spreadsheets that I used today will be available to all the Patreon members. The link is in the description for that if you want to join that still. I think there might be some spots open in the $4, $5 range, and then if not, the $8 range is open, and then you get access to all of it as well. And then we'll see what happens tomorrow. I mean, I do a video tomorrow, just take a day off. It's been a busy week. I need to relax, do some stuff around the house with the kids. But yeah, we'll leave it at that. So thank you so much for coming in. If you guys enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe as well. Definitely helps, especially hitting the like button, so that gets it out to more people. So I appreciate you guys coming in here to chat, to ask questions. And we do these live sessions Saturdays, usually around this time, around noon. And then we also do a live session on Wednesday. So try to do it at least twice a week for you guys, so that way we can interact this way. Okay, but that is it. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I don't see any other questions here, so we'll leave it at that. We'll see you guys possibly on Monday. We'll see what happens then. All right, so thank you. See you.